Most backyard chicken keepers spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars every year buying chicken feed, and they believe there's no alternative. But what if I told you there's a single plant that can replace a huge portion of commercial feed, produces more protein than expensive grain mixes, grows back every time you harvest it, and continues producing for decades without replanting? This plant feeds chickens for free. It grows itself. It survives drought, and it has been used by farmers for centuries. So why don't most chicken keepers know about it? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this plant is so powerful. Commercial feed is convenient. Nobody disputes that. You drive to the shop, you buy a bag, you pour it in the feeder. Simple, but it creates dependence. Complete dependence on a supply chain you don't control, on prices you don't set, on availability you can't guarantee. Prices increase every year. Feed that cost $50 per bag 5 years ago now costs $25 or $30, sometimes more. This adds up. A small flock of 10 chickens can consume 3 to 4 bags per month. That's $75 to $120 monthly, over $1,000 per year just for feed. Supply can be disrupted. We've seen this recently. Shop shelves empty, feed mills shut down temporarily, delivery trucks delayed, and when supply tightens, prices spike even higher. And most feed contains fillers rather than diverse natural nutrition. Commercial feed is formulated to meet minimum nutritional requirements, but it's standardized, processed. It lacks the diversity of natural diets. Historically, chickens never relied on bagged feed. That's a modern invention. For thousands of years, chickens survived by foraging diverse plants, insects, and natural foods. They thrived on this diet. They laid eggs. They reproduced. They lived full, healthy lives. Ancient farmers understood something modern systems forgot. Chickens evolved to eat living ecosystems, not processed pellets. They're designed to consume variety, fresh greens, protein from insects, seeds, roots. This diversity provides complete nutrition, and one plant in particular became one of the most powerful natural feed sources ever discovered. A plant so productive that a few specimens could supplement an entire flock indefinitely. If you want to learn forgotten farming systems, hidden survival plants, and powerful crops that modern agriculture overlooked, subscribe now because this plant could permanently reduce your dependence on commercial feed. The plant is called comfrey, and it's unlike almost any other plant you can grow. Comfrey contains 20 to 25% protein by dry weight. That's comparable to alfalfa, higher than most grasses, and significantly higher than many commercial grain mixes. It contains high calcium levels. Calcium is critical for egg-laying hens. They need enormous amounts to produce strong shells. Comfrey provides this calcium naturally. It contains essential vitamins and minerals. Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin B12, iron, magnesium, phosphorus. These nutrients directly support egg production, feather health, and immune strength. But the most powerful feature isn't its nutrition, it's its ability to regenerate endlessly. Once planted, comfrey can produce for 20 to 50 years without replanting, without fertilizing, without maintenance. Think about that. You plant it once and it feeds your chickens for decades. This is not an annual crop you replant every spring. This is a permanent food system. Grows in zones 3 to 9. Thrives in cold, temperate, and warm climates. If you live anywhere in the continental United States or most of Canada, you can grow comfrey. This makes it one of the most adaptable livestock feed plants on Earth. But its true power lies underground in a root system, unlike almost anything else in the plant kingdom. Comfrey has roots that grow over 10 ft deep. 10 ft. Most garden plants have roots that extend 12 to 18 inches deep, maybe 2 feet for deep-rooted vegetables. Comfrey's roots go 10 ft or more into the subsoil. These roots pull minerals other plants cannot reach. Calcium deep in the earth, magnesium, iron, phosphorus, potassium, trace minerals that shallow-rooted plants never access. These nutrients concentrate in the leaves. This creates extremely nutrient-dense feed. When you harvest comfrey leaves, you're harvesting minerals from 10 ft underground, minerals that would otherwise remain locked in subsoil layers. Unlike shallow-rooted plants that depend on surface soil nutrients, comfrey mines nutrients directly from deep underground. This is why it doesn't deplete soil. It's accessing resources other plants can't touch. This is why it can grow indefinitely. It's not competing with other plants for the same nutrients. It's tapping a different reservoir entirely. And that reservoir is essentially unlimited. Historically, farmers called comfrey the living fertilizer because it improves soil while feeding livestock. When comfrey leaves fall and decompose, they return those deep minerals to the surface. They enrich topsoil. Other plants growing nearby benefit. The entire system becomes more productive. This creates a positive cycle. Comfrey pulls minerals up. You harvest leaves. Some leaves decompose naturally. Minerals return to surface soil. Shallow-rooted plants access those minerals. Soil fertility improves year after year. Modern agriculture has largely forgotten this. Industrial farming relies on synthetic fertilizers, mined minerals, processed inputs. But traditional farmers understood biological systems. They understood plants like comfrey could build fertility naturally. Subscribe now because later in this video, I'll show you how a few comfrey plants can feed chickens for decades. Comfrey has been used for over 2,000 years. Ancient Greek and Roman farmers fed comfrey to livestock. Historical texts mention it. Agricultural writings describe it. Because of its high protein content and regenerative nature, it became a staple of Mediterranean farming systems. In medieval Europe, comfrey became essential in farming systems. Monasteries cultivated it extensively. Peasant farmers grew it near animal pens. It was used to feed chickens, goats, cattle, pigs, and other livestock. Farmers understood its power long before modern feed existed. They observed that animals fed comfrey gained weight faster, produced more milk, laid more eggs, stayed healthier. This wasn't scientific analysis. This was practical observation over generations. But industrial agriculture shifted away from self-sustaining systems. The 20th century brought massive changes: centralized feed production, commercial fertilizers, standardized livestock operations. These systems prioritized efficiency at scale, not resilience, not self-sufficiency. Replacing them with commercial feed dependency, modern farmers became customers, purchasing inputs, following standardized protocols. The knowledge of plants like comfrey faded, not because comfrey stopped working, but because the system changed. Traditional farming knowledge was dismissed as outdated, inefficient, old-fashioned. But that knowledge was built on centuries of observation on what actually worked in practice, and much of it still works today. Now there's a resurgence of interest. Smallholders, homesteaders, people seeking self-sufficiency. They're rediscovering these traditional systems and finding that plants like comfrey are just as valuable now as they were centuries ago. Unlike annual crops that die each year and must be replanted, comfrey is perennial. This means it regrows every year automatically. The roots survive winter. They remain dormant underground. When spring arrives, new growth emerges. No replanting, no reseeding. It just comes back. And each time you harvest leaves, it grows back faster. This seems counterintuitive, but it's true. Harvesting stimulates growth. The plant responds by producing more leaves more vigorously. It's an adaptation that benefits both the plant and the harvester. Each plant produces multiple harvests per year. In moderate climates, you can harvest comfrey 4 to 6 times per growing season. Each harvest yields several pounds of fresh leaves per plant. Growing seasons by zone. Zones 3 to 5 have spring to autumn production, typically April to October. 6 to 7 months of active growth. Zones 6 to 9 have extended growing seasons, March to November in many areas, 8 to 9 months of production. Zones 8 to 9 have nearly continuous production. In mild winters, comfrey may never fully go dormant, 10 to 12 months of potential harvest. A single plant can produce pounds of leaves repeatedly for decades. One mature comfrey plant can yield 30 to 50 laleb of fresh leaves annually. 10 plants can produce 300 to 500 laleb. That's an enormous amount of chicken feed free year after year. The math is compelling. If you're spending $1,000 per year on feed, and comfrey can replace even 30% of that feed, you're saving $300 annually from plants that cost maybe $5 to $10 each initially. The return on investment is extraordinary. And unlike annual gardens that require tilling, planting, weeding, and constant care, comfrey requires almost nothing once established. It's a permanent installation. Plant it once, harvest it regularly. That's the entire management strategy. Subscribe now because the next section reveals how just a few plants can dramatically reduce feed costs. Comfrey is extremely easy to grow. It requires sun or partial shade. It prefers full sun for maximum production, but it tolerates partial shade better than most vegetables. This makes it versatile. You can plant it in areas where other crops might struggle. It needs basic soil. Comfrey isn't fussy. It grows in clay. It grows in sandy soil. It grows in rocky ground. Obviously, richer soil produces more growth. But comfrey succeeds in conditions that would defeat most garden plants. It requires minimal watering once established. The first few weeks after planting, water regularly to establish roots. After that, those deep roots find moisture. Even during drought, comfrey often stays green when other plants wilt. Grow in zones 3 to 9 outdoors with no protection needed. Zones 2 and below can grow comfrey seasonally or with winter protection. But for most growers, comfrey is fully cold hardy. Once planted, comfrey requires almost no maintenance, no fertilizing. The deep roots find their own nutrients, no pesticides. Comfrey has few pest problems. Animals generally don't browse it heavily when it's growing. The leaves are slightly fuzzy and not particularly palatable fresh. But dried or wilted, chickens eat it readily, and it continues producing automatically. Each spring, new growth emerges. No action required on your part. The plant just grows. Harvest leaves every 4 to 6 weeks during the growing season. Cut leaves about 2 inches above the crown. Don't harvest all the way to the ground. Leave some growth to photosynthesize and maintain the plant, but you can take most of the foliage. Feed fresh or dried to chickens. Fresh leaves can be given directly. Chickens will peck at them. Dried leaves can be crumbled and mixed into feed or offered separately. Either way works. How many plants do you need? That depends on flock size. For 10 chickens, start with 6 to 10 comfrey plants. See how much your flock consumes. Adjust accordingly. You can always propagate more. Comfrey is easy to divide and multiply. Modern agriculture prioritizes scalable commercial systems, systems that work across thousands of acres that can be mechanized, standardized, optimized for industrial efficiency. Comfrey doesn't fit this model. It's a perennial. It doesn't fit into row, crop rotation. It can't be combine harvested like grain. Not self-sufficient systems. Industrial agriculture serves markets, large markets, commodity markets. It's not designed for self-sufficiency. It's designed to produce vast quantities of standardized products for sale. Commercial feed creates recurring purchases. This is the business model. Farmers buy feed every week, every month, year after year. This generates consistent revenue for feed companies. It's predictable. It's profitable. Self-renewing feed systems reduce dependence. From a business perspective, this is problematic. If farmers grow their own feed, they're not buying commercial feed. Revenue disappears, so there's no incentive for commercial agriculture to promote plants like comfrey. This shift caused traditional plants like comfrey to be forgotten, not because they stopped working, but because the economic system changed. The knowledge didn't fit the new model, so it faded from mainstream agriculture education. But interest in self-sufficient systems is growing again. People want resilience. They want to reduce dependence on supply chains. They want to lower costs. They want sustainability. And this drives renewed interest in traditional methods. As farmers rediscover sustainable agriculture methods, plants like comfrey are returning. Permaculture communities talk about it. Homesteading forums discuss it. Self-sufficiency advocates grow it. The knowledge is spreading again. Growing comfrey changes your relationship with feeding chickens. It's not just about saving money, though you will save money. It's about a fundamental shift in how you approach livestock keeping. Instead of buying feed, you harvest it. You walk to your comfrey patch, you cut leaves, you feed your flock. This creates a direct connection. You're not a customer, you're a producer. Instead of depending on supply chains, you produce your own. You're not vulnerable to distribution disruptions, price spikes, shortages. Your feed grows in your garden under your control. Instead of worrying about rising prices, you create stability. Feed costs become predictable, largely fixed after initial planting. This creates peace of mind, financial security, long-term sustainability. It transforms your system from dependent to self-sufficient. This is empowering. You're not just keeping chickens. You're building a system that works for you, a system that improves over time instead of draining resources year after year. And beyond the practical benefits, there's satisfaction in this approach, in growing feed, in using traditional knowledge, in creating something permanent that serves you for decades. This resonates with people seeking meaningful connection to their food systems. Comfrey won't replace all commercial feed for most keepers, but it can significantly reduce dependence. 30%, 50%, maybe more with commitment. That's substantial. That changes the economics completely. If you want to learn powerful hidden plants, forgotten agricultural systems, and how to build true self-sufficiency, subscribe now because these systems helped farmers survive for thousands of years. Have you ever seen comfrey before? Or would you plant it for your chickens? If this story changes the way you look at the weeds in your garden, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Plant the future. The next treasure will be revealed soon.